Hello guys, so in this tutorial we're going to edit our first application, and in order to achieve that we're going to use Visual Studio Code. So this is actually an integrated development environment or an editor which will help you to edit your code. So where can you download Visual Studio Code? You can download it from the official website. If you go to code.visualstudio.com. So here you can actually download the Visual Studio Code for free. So it's actually free of charge. So go on and download. So the next thing we're going to do is to open our project, because in the last course we actually created our first application, and the goal of this tutorial is to edit the application we actually created in the previous course. So just go on into the file and open where you actually installed your application or you installed the workspace. So just click on open folder and dive directly into the directory where you installed the application. So in my case, it was in the D drive, it was in the Angular project, and then here I have my first app. So here I'll just select the folder, my first app, and then select. Okay, so once you've loaded your project into the Visual Studio Code, you're going to see those folders and files. And most of those files are configuration files that you don't have to touch for now. We're going to see all of them later. So here you have the package.json, where you have your various packages installed or your various dependencies. Here you can see dev dependencies, which is actually used for development. So you're going to close that, and we're going to come to that later. So here you can see a folder called Node Module. So here you have our various dependencies that has been installed. And what is interesting us for now is this source folder where we're going to see our app. So in this app, you're going to see some various files here, the app.component.css, the app.component.html, the app.component.spec.ts, the app.component.ts, and the app.module.ts. So in the app.component.html, this is where we are going to write our HTML code. So the next thing we're going to do is to click this terminal, new terminal, and you open the terminal here where we're going to write our various commands. So let's launch the application we actually installed we created in the previous class. So just type ng-serve --open and click enter. So it will open directly the application. So it will launch the server and the application will be served into the browser automatically. So here you can see that my port 4200 is already in use. So I will click yes. In your case, it might not be used, but in my case, it's already in use. So I will just click yes, and it will serve the application using another port. So don't be surprised if you see my application served on another port, but it will be the same thing. So once the application will be served, it will open the browser automatically. And here you're going to see the application we created. So here you can see my first app is running. So that was our first application we created in the previous course. So let's go back in Visual Studio Code, and let's check and find where this line of code is found into this template, because here we can see my first app is running. So let's make a search of running, and here you can see the line of code title app is running. You can see that title is actually encapsulated in a strange curly braces, and you can see app is running. So this is where Angular actually comes into place, because actually works in background and actually serves what is written into this variable so that we can see the output. And this is called string interpolation. We are going to see that more of those examples later. This is called string interpolation. And if we go to the app.component.typescript, you're going to see the title, a variable called title, and my first app that is actually stored in title. And this is what we're actually outputting here. So the string interpolation is actually used to output data so that it can be viewable, or so that we can see it into our browser. So if we come here into our TypeScript file and change this my first app to something like here my first app is presently running. So you can type anything you want in here. In our case, we have here my first app is presently running. And using the string interpolation, you're going to see that that message will actually be outputted here. So let's remove this app is running and save our file and check in our browser. So here, make sure not to close your terminal because the server is actually running. So don't quit the terminal. If you want to quit, you just click Control C to end the server, which is actually running. But in our case, we don't want to stop the server running. So we're going to output the data. And here you can see here my first app is presently running. So let's take an example where we have an input element, a text. And here we're going to have our span where we have the string interpolation. And let's put the color. Make sure in the app.typescript you have your color. And here we want that a user inputs his own color. And here we're going to use the ng model. It's actually used by Angular, as I said earlier, to listen to an input element and then output the element in this case. So here in the app.model.typescript, we are going to, as you can see here in the import, we have the browser module. This here, we actually insert some modules that will be used by some pieces, by some parts or some pieces of our application. So here we're actually going to insert the forms module. Here, forms module. So make sure it has been imported here. Import forms module from Angular forms. So once you've imported that, you can see that the error message has disappeared. So it can now recognize this ng module. So I'll explain this again. So the ng module is actually a two-way binding where it actually listens to the input element the user gives and then outputs the data. So in our case, we have a variable called color. So we are going to, once the user will type his color, you actually binds the input element or the input data the user is giving to this color and then outputs the data directly here where we have the string interpolation. So in our case, so make sure in the app.component.typescript you have your color. Color is equals to blue, that is the initial color. So we have actually initialized this variable with the blue in this case. So make sure you save everything by clicking here, save all. And it will recompile directly. Let us check our browser. Okay, so here you can see the initial value blue in the input element, and here you can see the output. So this is the input and this is the output. So let's make sure to add in our HTML, let's just add a break, the break syntax, and save. So here you can see the input element, and once I will type, you can see, once I type, for example, red, you can see how the two-way bindings actually interact. So it listens to the input element and output directly in the string interpolation. It's lila, so you can change and play as you want. So enter whatever color you want here: red, yellow, green. So you can see, listen to input elements and output it here under. So guys, this is how Angular works in the background. So Angular is actually very cool, and you can see how the application is actually very reactive and everything is going on smoothly. So in the next tutorial, we're going to see more of them, and I'll also explain what is TypeScript, because the extension that you're actually seeing here, app.component.ts, TX means TypeScript, which is actually compiled in the background into JavaScript. So we're going to explain all those concepts. So feel free to practice and stay tuned till our next tutorial. Goodbye.